Video. All right, so we are going to install a tool, probably the most universal tool for converting from Markdown into HTML. And the purpose for this is so that you can see the association between Markdown and HTML very specifically. That's the reason. We want to be able to see the two and how they go with each other. The tool is called pandoc. So you can search for it. It's called pandoc right here. It does many, many other things besides the thing that you may want. But for this purpose, we're just going to get this one thing. So click on Install Pandoc, download the installer for Windows or Mac. If you're on Linux, you know how to do all this stuff. You probably don't need to do that. Let's see here. So we want to get Windows. I think I'm on. We can do the MSI. That's the auto installer. Again, you should already have install permissions on your system. Did it make it? Let's go see if it made it. Okay, there we go. I accept the license. It's open source. Install for all users. Install. And this is going to put pandoc, the pandoc command onto my computer, hopefully. Why is the setup wizard not happy? There we go. Yes. All right. So, all right. Apparently it's on. All right. Now, once it's on, finish. Okay. Once pandoc is on, we are going to check to see if it can be executed. What you're seeing now is a VS Code. We talked about that in another video. And you open up this VS Code, and here we have some Markdown. This is all covered in other videos. And we are going to open the terminal for the first time. You may have seen other videos about how to deal with the terminal. You may have seen me doing the terminal, Windows Terminal Preview and all of that. For now, let me put this right there. Please be patient. As of this moment, I think the best experience for the terminal for the user for the first time is in either the Mac terminal or the Windows terminal that comes with the system. So you can understand the terminal command line that exists on the system. We are going to do lots of other videos about how to put Bash on your system and use a different terminal and use just get, in general, get really good on the command line. But for today, we have one goal and one goal only. I was a little leery even going this early because somebody's going to run down the terminal, rabbit hole too early on me. But right now, the focus is on being able to run that program from the command line so that we can convert this Markdown into HTML. That's the sole purpose of this for this moment. The VS Code terminal needs a mention, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go under View right here, and then you can see the terminal. You can see the fast and quick key, which is what I almost always use, the Control left bracket in this case. And we're going to turn the terminal on, and now you're going to see the terminal. Now, by default on Windows, the terminal is, I'm going to get rid of my face here. The terminal on Windows by default is PowerShell. It used to be DOS, actually. PowerShell is a very important terminal. Should you learn it? Yes, you should learn PowerShell eventually. It's actually required if you're going to do cybersecurity. But we will not be covering PowerShell on the Boost because it is kind of a specialization, whereas I believe understanding the terminal in general, and specifically the Bash terminal, is more of a universal skill in my opinion. So we're going to be focusing on that. But for right now, you don't care. So let's talk about what this is. This terminal is a command line. What does a command line even mean? So a command line is, we'll talk about it in another video as well, but I'll say it here. This is telling you what hard drive you're on, and this is a Windows path. Note the backslashes. That's how you know it's Windows, and it's got a prompt, and over here you can type things in. You can type date. Again, we'll talk about this someplace else. There's lots of commands over here. You'll notice that some commands are now involved that were not here. ls didn't used to be here. dir is still there. You're going to learn all those commands. Don't stress about it right now. I wonder if that's clear. It does. It does have clear. Nice. But if this works, so let's do ls. Well, I wanted you to see this. Okay, so look at here. Here we have the index.html page that's listed over here in our Explorer, and we have the sum.md file, which is also right here. It tells the length and everything, when they were modified and their permissions. You'll understand all that eventually, but for right now, I just want to show you that you can see the same information in two different ways, graphically or from the command line using the terminal. So now we're going to see if we have the pandoc command over here. So let's do pandoc. How about -H? Let's just put a -H and see if it finds it. Okay, pandoc can't be found. It does not know where pandoc is. And I was afraid of this. It's probably not in the path. When we installed pandoc, it put it in a special place. And we might have to actually type all of that out. So let's see if we can find it. It's actually not in the path. I think we actually have to put it into the path. I don't know. Let me try one other thing here. Let's see if we can just, in the search bar here with the Windows key, if I type pandoc, let's see what happens. Nope, it's just got the installer. Okay, so I was afraid of this. This is why I don't want to do terminal stuff too early, but we're going to do it anyway. When you install a command line tool, you have to use the command line tool where it is. And so I don't even remember where the installer put it. But it's definitely someplace on our system. So we need to go find it. Did you guys notice? I could go back and watch the video. But I mean, I know a bunch of commands I could use to find it right now, but I'm kind of hesitant to do that. Let's actually try it with the old-fashioned Explorer, pretending you don't know how to use the command line tools. So let's go into the C drive, this PC. Here's the C drive. And we'll see here, Windows users program files. So it's probably in program files. Again, it's different on Windows, on Mac, of course. And there's pandoc. Okay, so there we go. There's the pandoc command. I think that is probably, we could probably actually move it. I wonder if we could actually just copy it in here. Wouldn't that be interesting if we could do that? I'm going to try it. I think you can copy it in. That would be cool. Oh my God. We actually copied a binary. This file is not a text editor. Open anyway. No, we don't want to open that. Normally you would never put an executable into your directory like that. But let's do that. Let's go ahead and do that just for fun, just so the file is right there. For now. We'll get rid of it later. But now when we do an ls, we should probably have it there. Oh my God, look how big that file is. In fact, if you do ls-h, I think it makes it human readable. Nope, ls-capital H. Nope. Okay. Well, ls on pandoc is, I mean, on PowerShell is not the same as bash for sure. All right. So here we have pandoc and we have a program. Let's see if it works now. If I type pandoc, will it see it? It does see it. The pandoc command was not found. It does not see it. What if I do this? Instead type /pandoc. Can I do /pandoc like this? Oh, seems to be doing something. How about we do /? Can you do /pandoc? I like /s better. Oh, it did it. Okay, good. All right, so let's like make this bigger so we can see it. You can scroll up if you want, but normally you can't see all that. Look at all those commands. We don't need to know all of that, all right? So again, I've got mixed feelings about this. We changed the order of how we do this. Normally you would learn the terminal in the previous years. You would learn the terminal and all that stuff before web stuff. So you'd already easily be able to do all of these commands. But for this time, we're pretending you don't know any of that. And so you install pandoc, put the executable there, and now let's actually try it. So /pandoc, we're going to use // because that's more universal. And then we're going to run it against the file. We're going to do sum.md and see what happens. Oh, look what it did. We ran it and we got output and it showed us the program, right? Now, if you want to learn all about pandoc and kind of get your sense of how to deal about commands, you can only, I already told you, look at the -H. You can go look at all this stuff, but for right now, you don't really need to stress about that. The only reason we're doing this right now is because we want to see what happens when we convert something from Markdown into HTML. That is the purpose of this, of getting pandoc. So if you feel, I'm going to say this again, if you feel a little bit stretched, if you feel like, downloading and installing pandoc is hard, it's good practice to install things. You have to have admin access to do that. If you feel like going and finding the executable and putting it in the same directory right now is hard, give that some practice. Those are more or less basic computer skills. and then running, but right now all we're going to do is we're going to run the program and we're going to use it to make a new file. And the syntax what I write is you're going to have to memorize it. You will understand that after the fact, but for right now I just want to, the missing piece is we need to make that conversion. Okay, so let's go back to it. So we're going to say ./pandoc. What is the dot about? What is the slash about? Don't worry, we'll talk about that later. So ./pandoc, and then we're going to do sum.md, and we're going to do a greater than sign, and then we're going to do sum.html, right? And now we have, look what it did. It made us a new file that's HTML. You see what it did? Right? It made it. It didn't do all of it though. It just made part of it. So we took the Markdown file here and we can see that it got converted into this. You see how that conversion happened? All right. Now there is one other thing about pandoc we can do. I have to go look it up actually. Where let's go. Let's pipe it into more. I think there's a more. Is there a more? Maybe there's not. If that happens, by the way, if you get stuck, just do Control C. All right, so pandoc-h more. There we go. That gives us, so it stops it on the page. We're going to cover more later when we learn the terminal. So format, it tells you what type, output file, data directory. If you don't want to do you can do the -o file if you want to have it be to a file. What I'm looking for, there we go, standalone. See the standalone thing? Standalone equals true or false. Standalone makes it into more than just a little snippet. The snippet is nice though, because why? What does the snippet do? The snippet shows us exactly what it translated to. And we've learned about unordered lists last week and other times, but now you can see that association. Why is that valuable? Because when you do that here, so like you can click over here, but in terms of learning, you don't know, this is actually HTML, but you can't inspect it. You can't see it. But by running it through pandoc, you can see it. And so you can learn about HTML and Markdown by looking at the Markdown and then seeing how it produces HTML, seeing what it does, okay? So let's actually experiment with something else here. Let's go back up. I'm pushing the up arrow. We're going to go back up to the up arrow to the pandoc command that we did that made this, right? We learned by reading the document here that we can do -o file. That means that we can, instead of that, if we wanted to, we could do -o file, right? And it'll do it. But let's try it with, let's see if that works. So that'll make us a file. Again, same exact thing as before, just a different way to write it. We used redirection in the other one, but let's add -s too, because we know now that it's got standalone. I wonder if -s is enough to do it. If we do -s, it says this document format requires an unempty title element defaulting to sum as the title to specify a title, blah, blah, blah. Oh, we don't care about that. But here's something interesting. Look at our HTML file now. See what I'm saying? Now you kind of see the difference. This is why we did this. And this is also a great segue into CSS, which we're going to be covering in the next video. So we're going to start covering CSS. So once you have pandoc installed, I want you to see that you can convert between this into this in one command. Pretty damn cool, right? By the way, if you close this, it's still there. You can go back and do view terminal and it'll still be there. It's just a way of temporarily closing it. If you want to, if you're getting tired of doing the menus, you can just do alt / or whatever. In my case, it's control / alt back. You see what I'm saying? And that hotkey is right here, control / and you can go back and forth. So you'll get good with that. You'll be pulling the terminal up a lot. And as you can see though, when you make a standalone web page, it produces a lot of stuff here, right? Isn't that crazy? You know what's really cool about this? Let's go preview it. Remember down here in the bottom right, we have the port. It says port 5500. We can go back to our web page that we were using to preview, and now we can add on a URL path. We can do / what do we call it? Sum.html. Sum.html. And did I say backtick? Yeah. And there it is. This is a paragraph. Look at that. Look at how clean it is. In fact, we learned about inspect element last time. Inspect element, you can see that there's my dark reader stuff, but you can see how, you see what it did here, right? Now, I think this is interesting because if you look at the one that we wrote from scratch, which is this one, right? It's considerably different. And one of the reasons for using pandoc is it does a bunch of rendering. So it, it changes, it gives us a bunch of things that we can now play with, right? In fact, it gives us an entire set of classes. And by the way, another reason to do this instead of using inspect element is because you get a bunch of extra crap in here a lot of times. And you don't always want to look at that because some of it's added by the server and different thing. This way, by using pandoc, we can see exactly what was rendered. So this turned into this. But if you don't want the whole page, once again, I'm going to show you the very first one. Get rid of the S. If you get rid of the dash S because you just want to see how things relate, right? That warning was, whoops, I'm doing Linux stuff. Look at this. So if you want to see how they relate to one another, you can do this. And by the way, we're going to use this to do some pretty funky magic later. In fact, let me give you a little preview of the magic we're going to be doing, just so you can see how stinking cool that is. So which pandoc? Let me make sure I have pandoc on here. This is, you don't know anything about this yet, but you will. All right. So let's say I was writing like foo.html. And you might not do this, but let's say you were doing this. I could write, here is a thing, like 1, 2, right? And something. Let's say that I just want to convert, maybe I want to even write some HTML here. Maybe I wanted to do some math jacks, which we talked about before. I can actually send those 2 lines to Markdown to pandoc and render them in line, just by sending them to pandoc and then having those lines replaced with what came out of pandoc. Pretty damn cool, right? Well, I can convert the whole document using the same method. I'm going to send it to pandoc, and that'll, whoops, I didn't do the whole document. Pandoc, and we send the whole thing, and it converts the whole file. I could send the whole thing and do pandoc-s, and I can create an entire thing. And now I just created an entire document by just sending it to the outline. The reason I'm showing you this is because somebody out there may be wondering, I mean, this is a thing. Watch, if I want to just change this one line, pandoc, whoops. I can send just this one line to pandoc, and it will convert it, and I'll get my EM stuff there. So you might want to just do some conversions, but I'm using what's called Unix filters. And a lot of people will reach for plugins and things, in my opinion, too early, because they could have used Unix filters. And one of the most powerful Unix filters is pandoc. That is why we're learning pandoc, because pandoc shows you the conversion, whether it be for just a segment of something or for an entire file. You can go back in here, and there's so many other reasons to use pandoc. Not to mention, publishing and all the other stuff that comes with it. But pandoc is a very amazing way to preview how most Markdown would be rendered. And the default version of pandoc, which is called pandoc Markdown, is relatively close to GitHub flavored Markdown. So it'll be, consistent with other things that you will be learning. If you're wanting to know what all this other stuff is in here, that we're going to cover in other videos. Right, we are learning HTML and CSS directly. We already did that. We did that last week. We learned HTML here directly to write HTML. And then we learned, we're going to be learning CSS next. But the reason that we introduced pandoc into this is for you to help understand what the association between HTML and pandoc is. And I'm going to say it again. It is as important for you to learn Markdown as, if not more important, than to learn HTML. You need to learn HTML, but from a practical perspective, you're not going to be spending very much time writing HTML in your tech career, unless you go into web development of some kind. Most of the time, you're going to be manipulating HTML that's been created for you by some other tool. And web developers are going to come unglued by my saying that, but that's the truth. The truth is that the practical skill that's required for the job is understanding how to write Markdown and maintain it. And and understanding how to read and comprehend Markdown and I'm sorry, it's HTML and occasionally CSS. But the daily job to write HTML and CSS does not exist unless you're in a web development role primarily. Almost all the time you're going to be writing Markdown. So that's the reason we're doing the pandoc thing. Those are all very legitimate, honest questions. Have fun with that. And next will be taking care and looking at CSS.